Well folks, it's another month and we have yet another batch of silhouette teasers from Kaz's Twitter of course. This time 5 cars. We don't know about circuits of course, we'll have to wait and see in the trailer itself, but with the inclusion recently of Grand Valley, I wouldn't necessarily be expecting much if any in the way of circuits. The 5 cars are very interesting, very eclectic mix as they always go for, even when I do the special projects pack each month, which I'm planning to do one again next month, the 4th pack I believe it is if I recall correctly. That one is always eclectic as well. I like to mix and match much like they do. This time we have one car at least from the leaked data mining list, if I recall correctly. We've got a couple of classics, a couple of Porsches, we've got an interesting modern race car, a very, very interesting one there, as some of you will have already noticed. And speaking of noticing them and breaking them down, that's one of our favourite things to do on the Discord for the channel. So if you're not already on there are over 1,200 people on the HSG Discord, so there's a link down below to join. So of course, jump over and check that out. For now though, let's work around these in a clockwise manner, from the top of course, top dead centre if you will. The first one being a car from the list, the big box in silhouette form, the Toyota Alphard. A strange choice, I said as much back when it was first leaked on that list. It's no Renault Espace F1, but it is cool to have a minivan or MPV, people carrier, whatever you want to call it in the game. I'm very curious to see what the tuning is like on this particular vehicle. Could be a cool drift car, maybe even a deceptively good drag machine. And often you will find with larger vehicles that they tend to be better than you might give them credit for when you tune them. And I personally love driving bigger vehicles, both in real life and in games. Next up we have the car that I'm actually kind of the most stoked for. It's not one of my favourite cars in real life, but it is a car which is so capable in road form, in rally form, in racing form. It's just such a very, very well developed, crushingly capable platform. And unfortunately, the one thorn in this car's side was that it didn't quite hit 200 miles an hour, whereas the Ferrari F40 of course did, and is the Porsche 959. Of course it carries over much of what's great about the 911, with a full-time four-wheel drive as well, like an EB110 would have from Bugatti. Much like the Bugatti, it's very technologically packed, full of engineering. I mean, 197 miles an hour or so from 450 horsepower is very good. Acceleration was ballistic thanks to the four-wheel drive and the power. And being a Porsche, you know it's going to be competitive. Even stock, you already know it's going to be fast. I'm curious to see what the price is going to be. It could be quite expensive if it is from the legendary dealership, but we'll have to wait and see. Next up we have the most normal car of the pack, probably the one that most people won't care for as much, unless you're a fan of the car, the newer shape Mazda 3. Or at least that's what it appears to be. It's this interesting trend, for some reason, especially when it comes to Mazda, it seems, in the past couple of games, of having quite normal cars, not really high-end stuff. The little diesel, you got the Atenza, and of course the Atenza has the racing versions, but this continues that trend of kind of relatively normal Mazdas, which is a curious choice. It is going to be doubtless an interesting car for lower level tuning, and again, don't discount these seemingly boring cars that sometimes turn out to be better. I will say though, I'm not going to try and claim it's something it's not. It's a Mazda 3, so doubtless it will be the slowest car of the pack, but we'll see if it's useful for anything in particular. Next up we have possibly the most interesting car of the pack in terms of its potential for the future, because it certainly appears to be, and again there's plenty of conjecture about this over on the Discord for the channel, a DTM car. It appears to be an Audi, the RS5, potentially a more modern shape coupe-based DTM touring car. And for those who have only played the past couple of games, maybe you started with Sport or 7, you might not be familiar with these being in Gran Turismo, but aside from the older Alfa Romeo 155 from the glory days of DTM, we also had the Calibra, the Astra, both from Vauxhall and Opel, there was the Mercedes 190E, the CLK, and probably most notably, the newest shape DTM car featured in any of the Gran Turismo games until now was, if I recall correctly, the Red Bull liveried Audi A4. Interestingly, going back to Audi again, it would seem, for the well of DTM, and even though these days DTM is much more close to GT500s, quite deliberately in terms of regulations, this will technically mean that it is the only DTM car in the game. Doubtless it will be in Group 2, like the GT500s, but it really does remind me of that old Falcon XR8 V8 supercar that we used to have in Gran Turismo, the Australian race car that had really no actual rivals, so it always felt kind of a loner. Not quite as much of a loner as that car, because, as I said, GT500s are present, but still in spirit, having the only DTM car in modern times in the game is going to be interesting, and you already know this thing's going to be seriously fast and probably very, very popular as well. And last but definitely not least, we have another classic, another Porsche. It appears to be a Porsche 904. There are a couple of different variations that it could be of the 904. Personally, I've never been a huge fan of these particular Porsches of this era, the 904 or others. I'm more of a 911 guy, as stereotypical as that is to say. But for those who are into their Porsches or into their older Porsche race cars in particular, doubtless you'll be happy to see it. And the thing about Porsche, as I've learned in real life, and certainly as anyone who uses them in games will know, don't discount them. They are always, always good. There's not a single Porsche in any racing game that isn't good for something. Even, for example, if you look at GT Sport, look at the Porsche 356. Lower level machine, but it's really good for low power racing. And all the way up to the top, that applies as well. So a very eclectic mix of 5. Some I'm definitely more anticipating than others. Of course, my curiosity is peaked at the Alphard. I have high hopes for the 959, and I'm very curious about what appears to be the DTM car. And of course, we'll see what the 904 and the Mazda are like as well. So if you disagree or if you have alternate predictions, drop them down below. Plus, if you do agree, what your thoughts are, your prediction on maybe which one you think will be your favourite, how much maybe you think they'll cost. I could see maybe the 959 or the 904 being the most expensive of the pack. I think maybe the 959. I'm not sure what values are on 904s these days, but I would imagine the 959. But ultimately, that's it for my thoughts. Of course, I will be covering this in the coming week when this drops. We'll see soon enough over the next few days, probably when the trailer comes out, the confirmation of this. If there is any other stuff as well, of course, I will cover that. And I would say don't expect a circuit, because as I said, we did, of course, have Grand Valley recently. So that's it overall for this update. Of course, stick around on the channel for that coverage, and until next time, I'll see you then. But for now, as always, thanks for watching.